Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers here at This Week in North America. Thank you for joining us. We have a real good, action-packed, educational and inspirational program for you as we move forward, because you know the guests we have on are always bringing solutions and always bringing what they're doing to the table with regard to the rights of the people in Canada and here in the United States of America. A couple of things before I do introduce our guests. A lot going on in the United States with regard to COVID-19. The courts finally on the state level and now the Supreme Court are beginning to shut down the mandates of federal workers, of nurses, of doctors, and on and on and on. So the people are being heard, and it's becoming loud and clear to our United States Congress, who's not controlled by us, by the way, we the people, that things are going to change rapidly as we predicted after the elections of the U.S. Congress these past few months. Now, a couple of things that I want to share with you before I introduce our first guest. By the way, our both guests, I'll say right now, Mark Cheesman, he's our first guest. He's going to be joining us with regard to the Second Amendment and the constitutional rights of the people in the United States with regard to that. Mark has been very, very involved for a long, long time in fighting ferociously against those who are against the constitutional rights of the people in this country with regard to not only gun ownership, but also the right to carry their firearms. Mark will be with us the first half hour. And in the second half hour, we have Marcella and Jim. They're with Stand With United. They're going to provide us with their updates and a lot of information about the work they're doing with regard to a number of issues in Canada, and in particularly with regard to a recall that's going on in one of their provinces. So we have all of this going on. Excuse me, folks, all of this going on. And I know that you're going to just enjoy tonight's program. So let's get right to it. Mark Cheesman. Mark, I'm going to bring you on the air right now. Mark, thank you for joining us tonight.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me. Good to.
Mark, in relation to your work with the gun rights advocates, with the Second Amendment supporters, can you give our audience a little background of who you are, how you got involved, and what in the world's going on now with the Supreme Court deciding on some decisions that are favoring gun rights and others not?
Sure, Steve. First of all, I'm in the Second Amendment advocacy here in New Jersey, specifically about 2014 up until now. I've done a number of action, going up to Trenton and testifying against anti-gun bills, case up to the Supreme Court to try to get our carry rights restored here in New Jersey. I have a social media platform, New Jersey Firearms Owners Syndicate specific also. Working with some different attorneys, helping them find plaintiffs, helping them formulate cases, gathering information, things of that nature.
Mark, some people would like to know, they've emailed about this. In Florida, they have the Stand Your Rights law or Stand Your Ground law. In other states, they don't. Can you explain to the people in our audience what the Stand Your Ground law is?
Understand the Stand Your Ground law, specifically in Florida, exactly that. The ground that you're on is yours, and you can stand that ground. So specific to, say, something like your front yard. It could be in a park, wherever you are. Whereas in New Jersey, we don't have that thing. So if you had to defend yourself down in Florida at any place, as long as your use is viable, then you more than likely aren't going to be prosecuted. Whereas in New Jersey, you because we don't have that here.
So in other words, in Florida, if your life is being threatened, if you feel your life's being threatened and somebody draws a weapon on you and you shoot them and kill them or injure them, you would be not prosecuted in Florida.
Well, now being prosecuted is not necessarily a bad thing. It just means you're going to have to go to court. You did. And there's a lot that goes along with what you draw your weapon and you actually use your weapon. There's a lot of variables to even do that. You have to have with it in your mind that you are in imminent danger, and you do. So after you use, good to stay at the scene. Try to administer.
Mark, can you do me a favor? You're cutting out. Can you get closer to the mic? Maybe that'll be better.
Yeah. So if you have to use your firearm, and this is anywhere, you need to be completely sure that you have an imminent threat, and you absolutely have to yourself. Okay. That's the first rule. After the fact, firearm, it's good. You want to stay at the scene. Don't leave the scene, and try to render first aid to the person you shot. But do not. You should call 911. Identify yourself to them as to who you are, because when the police show up, they're not going. They have a whole who's who, and you're the guy standing with a gun. And so those are a couple of basic things you want to do if you have to use your firearm.
Mark, in Canada, there's a great effort to confiscate the weapons from the people, even farmers. I know we've had that problem here in the United States, and it's been addressed and still being addressed. What efforts, maybe we could help them out a little bit, what efforts have been made here in the United States to prevent that from happening? I know you've been in the midst of this conflict.
Well, unlike Canada, we have a very important the Bill of Rights, which contains a Second Amendment. It was reaffirmed again in, I think, late June by our Supreme Court, Serpa versus Bruin.
Mark, unfortunately, we're losing your audio, so I'm going to have you on some other time. Your audio is actually cutting out, and it's we can't even hear you at some point. So let's just try this again, all right, buddy? But thank you so much for joining. Thank you. All right, folks. Yeah, we began to see what many of you have been saying. He was getting cut out pretty badly. We have that from time to time. We have a storm up here in North Jersey, so maybe that's affecting it. All right, I'm going to bring on our next guest right now. Marcella and Jim, they're going to provide us with information about the work that they're doing in their fight for freedom and liberty. I looked over some of their material, and I've got to tell you, they're doing one heck of a job. So let's bring them right on, and hopefully we won't have much of a communication problem. So Marcella and Jim, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having us on here.
Well, loud and clear. So here we are in New Jersey. He's trying to speak to someone from New Jersey, and it's getting all cut out. Here you are way up in Canada. It's loud and clear.
Awesome.
All right, great. So please share with our audience, and we have a huge American audience also. Share with us who you are, what you're doing, and then we'll get into some specifics.
Well, we're activists. We've had a lot of different problems since March of 2020 when the pandemic started. And, just our fundamental rights out here have been trampled all over in so many different aspects. So some of what we've done is kind of went to the mainstream media with notices of liability to speak outside of the one-sided narrative and actually take the other side of the narrative a little bit more seriously, what this is doing to other people's lives. I'm sorry about that. I'll turn that off. We have stood up to the media. So the mainstream media, the media is the virus, was our initiative, and we took that pretty seriously. We've stood up to the College of Physicians and Surgeons because they're the ones who have kept the muzzles tightly around our medical professionals, gag orders, not to speak outside the narrative, of course.
And that wasn't just here in British Columbia. That was Canada-wide. We had national rallies on that
Well, we did
initiative.
that. Yeah, we do that with pretty much most of our initiatives. So again, mainstream media, we did that quite a bit. We wanted to make sure we hit the CTV, the CBC. We did the global news, all the big broadcasting stations, and we did that nationwide as well. So, and then, yes, the College of Physicians and Surgeons, believe me. So for example, in April, I believe it was April, we got our fundamental rights back to participate more in society, like go to a restaurant or, a major sports event or a concert and all these other things that we were excluded from if you elected not to take the jab. And of course, a lot of people here in Canada, I think there's about 12 million of us that elected not to. So that's quite a bit of segregation and discrimination happening here in Canada. But we were all really thrilled to get our fundamental rights back as far as going to our gyms and things like that again. So anyhow, well, that happened. I did go to visit my doctor, and the receptionist asked me to put on a mask. I just put it in my pocket and waited to see my doctor. And of course, that's what I did. My doctor is in agreement that it's unfair, but it's unfair that the way they're being treated. So my point is we got to stand up to the medical tyranny, which is why we went to the College of Physicians and Surgeons. And that's where the rules are coming down to all the different medical professionals, that if you're a dentist, you still have to, sit there in a mask, but you can go to a hockey game and scream your lungs out with anybody around you. And it's tyranny because they know they've got your hands tied, okay, when you need medical help. But how many times have people been in hospitals and they're on their last leg, but you might not have the jab here in Canada. I don't know what it's like in the States, but if you didn't have yours, you couldn't go and visit your loved one in their time of need or possibly even when they're passing without a huge fight. So we stood up to the college and we did it 3 times, and we had a couple colleges actually going into court for crimes against humanity. So we are actually making progress. Now, we have stood up to the RCMP. We had 29 cities organized to do the rally at the RCMP this summer. I believe it was in July, and that was great. We organized Canada really well for that one too. And now, unfortunately, we have a sitting premier in British Columbia who's taken over for John Horgan, who is sick, and he's not going to be our premier anymore. So they hand-selected this man, David Eby, MLA out of West Point, is it?
West Point, Grey, Vancouver.
West Point, Grey, Vancouver. And we had our rally there yesterday. We are working with a team, Fight 36, and they have the legal petition in order to recall this sitting.
Tell us how the process of recalling. We could would hear, and it may be similar to yours. We need enough signatures on a petition, and they either a re-election, and then people vote against them, and they're out. But is your recall, is this the same process or a little different?
I think it's about the same process. So there's over 40,000 people in his riding, and we need to get 16,500 signatures within that riding in order to have him recalled. Now, when he is recalled, he actually has no power as a MLA anymore because he loses his seat in the legislature. And he also has no vote. So this is a really good thing to happen. We're still waiting for our lieutenant governor in our province to give us some more answers to some of the questions we have on what happens to him. Now, when he is removed as the MLA in that riding, it triggers a by-election in our province, and that has to happen with 90 days of him being recalled. And he can still run in the election in that riding, and we're hopeful he ain't going to do that.
So realistically, Well, it'll take 90 days for them to go through the petition and to make sure that all the paperwork is
No,
legit.
it's 42 days.
Is it 42
It's 40.
days?
So here's what happens. It triggers a by-election. So 42 days, once we get all those signatures handed into Elections BC, then that's 42 days for them to go over every single signature that we have collected. And then once that is done and they verify that, yes, we have recalled him, that has 90 days. That's the trigger start that there has to be a by-election.
You know, I'm curious about, and I say this to the American Congress as well as to your parliament. Some of them are watching, by the way, from your parliament, at least some of them
Awesome.
personally, they're operatives. But I'm asking them directly, why you guys cowards? I mean, why don't you stand up with the people and for the people against something that you know is detrimental to your society? It's not only about taking a vax, but it's about their individual rights. I mean, you guys are unbelievable. And I hope you're watching what's happening in America, because there's a domino effect across this country that I'm sure the media that you pay for, right? You guys pay for your media. Well, we don't do that out here.
We're taxpayer
people control the
funded.
media here. But my point is that I can't wrap my arms around that there are elected officials in your country who stand by and they watch the rights of the people being trampled. And we see that here, but at least we've got and we've demonstrated through our last congressional election that, well, enough is enough, and there's going to be a domino effect, and there is now. In fact, I could tell you, some of the people that you've seen in the news here are not only going to be removed from office through a legal process, but some are going to go to jail. And I try to get across to your parliament members or your elected officials, they're going down. I mean, they are eventually going to end up in very, very serious trouble. We're going to begin at Justin Trudeau, who's going to have a lot of problems, not respected worldwide, by the way. He may think he is, but I don't know where this guy is going to run after he's removed from office. So my question to you leading up to that is, are there any elected people in your country who have said, look, we're going to stand with the people on this? I mean, obviously, you're doing a lot of work, and you know it's good what you're doing. You're doing within the framework of the law. You're using, and I've said this to the American audience that has a little bit more to learn about this, is that you have the law on your side. You have the Charter of Rights and Freedoms on your side, as we have the Constitution on our side, and you're using it. So, again, are there any elected officials out there who are standing up for you all?
We had one.
Well, I do want to say something before we get into that, just because we're not just specifically trying to remove this premier for no reason. Let's get into the reasoning for this. Okay, if this was a good man who had our best interest in mind, we wouldn't be in this position to begin with, Stephen. We would probably be supportive of any premier that is got our backs and actually. Hey, cut it out.
That's okay. I have a German Shepherd, Jim. I have a German Shepherd, and right before broadcast, I give him a big bone. So he's right upstairs chewing a big bone because he'll start barking.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's just we're good, wholesome people. We have a dog, you know.
I don't know if you heard what I said. I have a German Shepherd, and he does that. And so I give him a big, giant bone, and he goes upstairs. And right now he's chewing on it while we're on the air.
Smart.
Perfect. That's the first time it's happened. We've been on a lot of shows. You know what? Realistically, though, let's get back to the Bill 36 issue, okay? Because Bill 36 is the reason why we're recalling David Eby. He slipped this bill in through legislation without it going through due process, which is the full 3 readings. They did this right before Christmas break. It basically passed through legislation on the day of Christmas break. And then, of course, they were gone for 3 weeks until they come back. But that being said, it happened because we have a very strong NDP leadership out here in British Columbia, and it's the majority. Unfortunately, the NDP is in bed with the Liberals in a coalition in Canada right now, which is making things very difficult. However, this is a very shady, like an oak tree kind of shady, okay? So what it boils down to is Bill 36 takes away all of our medical professionals' rights as well as our privacy. So let me just go through a few things. If a medical professional now speaks against a government narrative, they're going to get a $200,000 fine. Okay, so once this policy is enacted, $200,000 fine, 6 months in jail per offense. Okay, besides that, your doctor-patient privacy is no longer between you and your doctor. The government can ask for your medical records at any time to know what you've done, what you haven't done, and everything about you medically. That being said, our health minister, Adrian Dix, here in British Columbia. Now, let me just make one thing clear. This is the testing grounds here in British Columbia for this Bill 36. This isn't federal, this is provincial. And we're the testing grounds to see if they can make this fly here, and then it'll spread like wildfire across Canada. So anyone who thinks this is only going to land in British Columbia, think again. Anyhow, Adrian Dix, our health minister, will have the final say on what the definition of informed consent looks like. You can forget about the law books, okay? And that is exactly what the problem is here. This bill is draconian beyond anything you could ever imagine. This is welcoming communism into Canada with open arms, and we just can't allow that. This has to stop here.
Well, James, I read some of the bill, and I've got to tell you, I was shocked. Really stunned, to tell you the truth. And that bill, we're going to try to get into the hands of all of our congressional leadership in this country, because I've been saying for quite some time that Canada is becoming, the Canadian government, I'm not going to say Canada because the people there are great. The Canadian government is becoming a national security threat to the United States. When they introduce measures that enslave the people and measures that are written in that bill, I'll tell you, I'm shocked. I'm stunned. That would never happen here. I'll tell you, we've had crazy things happen in this country, but that will never happen. The response here would be rather overwhelming. But to think that people would be fined and some have been jailed and on and on and on. And so I want to get back to this question. These politicians up there, I mean, it's incredible. Don't they know that they will become enslaved? Eventually, they're going to be out of office. They will be enslaved like everyone else. And the other thing is this, is that, you know, as you guys do your work, and you've been very successful, and I believe you're going to succeed at the end of the day, as the ship is sinking from, what do you call that, Parliament Hill? As the ship is sinking from Parliament Hill and you see everybody start jumping out windows, they're going to be, as we say in law enforcement, chirping like parrots, because they're not going to want to go to jail. They're not going to want to really have some hard times ahead in their own lives. So that's why I just don't understand why they can't figure this out.
Well, it does, Stephen. It boils down to accountability at this point in time. And I don't believe they should just be able to be elected so you're protected and here's your parachute no matter what you do. Well, you know, it was a government stipulation, it was a policy, and that's your cop-out. Too many lives have been destroyed over this as it is already. Now, they all have been talking about our strained medical health care system here since, you know, the pandemic, scamdemic. Okay, so listen up. It was strained long before that time. And all they did is strain it more by putting all these regulations on the people who are qualified to take care of us in our times of need. So they stressed it. And now this not only affects the medical professionals that are working in the institutions, but the private business owners themselves are going to have to follow code and take whatever it is they tell them to take to. And that's just going to make them leave.
Yeah, that's out of Stalin's, Lenin's playbook. This whole, I mean, this sounds like the Twilight Zone, for goodness sakes. I mean, this is really incredible. You know, are you aware of the Hague inquiry that's going on? Are you aware of that? Well, after the broadcast, I'm going to email the email of a gentleman named Alan Nicholson. We've had him on the air. They've done pretty extensive work in getting enough information for criminal charges brought against some of the people in your government and others. The Hague has agreed to accept. They've accepted the at least the initial phase of an inquiry. I think you guys might want to talk with him, and maybe together. You know, I like the title of your organization, Stand United. Unfortunately, what we had here in the States, and now I understand in Canada, when you try to get people involved, there's turf wars. There's who's in charge, who's this, who's that. You know what? It's a house divided does not stand, says the Bible, right?
That's
but I can assure you, Alan Nicholson, his wife, and the team he has would really work well with you insofar as doing something that I want to emphasize a little bit, getting information out and enough credible, actionable information, no conspiracy theories, none of that nonsense, but stuff that you could bring in before a judge, whether it be international court or national court, that will be upheld. Something that you said to me when we were on the phone, and it resonated real good. especially with what we're going to be doing with the WEF, and we'll be announcing that soon, real soon. You talked about educating people, information, getting information out that people can absorb, look at, and learn. I have found through some of the research we've done, and I'm going to segue this to you, that the WEF, the World Economic Forum, they haven't accomplished much. I've had some people dive deep into what they're doing, what they've been doing. They haven't accomplished other than really having a lot of meetings. And through their propaganda, they're trying to scare a lot of people. They're trying to intimidate and bully a lot of people, especially elected officials, to join their forces. But we just learned recently that they've got some serious problems. One problem, they admitted that the instability on this planet with regard to civil uprisings and wars is creating a big problem for their agenda. But they've got more problems coming, because the people of this world, and in particular, it started here in the United States and Canada coming together, we're all uniting. You have a logo there, Stand United. I mean, the WEF, when those people look at these words, believe me, it runs a chill up and down their spine. So what you're doing is going to have a global impact. I just wanted to mention that because it's a real great effort that you're putting together. So now, it was the BCCA, what's that? Is that what it is? Or I have the initials wrong?
BC Civil Liberties Association, is that what you're referring
to? You belong to that organization?
No, we don't. Actually, our premier used to be the executive director of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they helping you with your civil liberties? Or are they scared too? They're scared too. I'll tell you, all these people are scared. You see, what's great about what you do, what we're doing here, we've proven we're not intimidated or bullied. You know, the other thing is this. Look, I've been an elected official. I've been in politics most of my adult life. And one thing I always wanted to remember, never put yourself in a position where you got to look over your shoulder 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Or as my wife says, don't put yourself in a position where somebody gets a collar around your neck and they can pull it. This is why you're successful. You're not bought. You're not sold. I mean, this is really great. Folks watching, this is what it's all about. So when the people, and this to the people watching, when you think that the other side is winning, they are losing. Of course, they're not going to reveal how catastrophic the loss is, but they're losing. And so the work you're doing is working. So, all right. So I'm glad, because we have a American Civil Liberties Union in this country. And for the most part, I don't have any use for them, but they will truly represent even the conservative rights of the people if they feel that those rights are being infringed upon. But I guess the civil rights group up there is just like your media, the CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Company, bought, sold, and that's the way it goes. All right, so now where are you at now insofar as your effort, and what's your end game here?
I just kind of wanted to touch on what you were saying a little bit about the WEF as well. Klaus Schwab, okay.
Could you speak up, Jim?
Yeah, Klaus Schwab, he brags high and mighty of how he's infiltrated the cabinets of our nation here in Canada. Over 50% of our cabinets have gone along with the World Economic Forum program. Now, I'll tell you what, our not our health minister, Chrystia Freeland, she's our finance minister, and she has actually one other job title, which is, she's got two big job titles for us. Anyways, Finance Minister of Canada is pretty big, and she seems to be Justin Trudeau's right-hand man. Now, she was just speaking at the Economic Forum.
I was going to just tell you why I'm laughing. You said right-hand man. You know, there's a big thing going on in this country. It's man, woman, male, female. I mean, what in the world is it? But okay.
I mean, you want to be realistic here and say that, yes, of course we have a fighter's chance. And you know why we have a fighter's chance is because there's people with a moral compass prepared to stand up and do the right thing. And that's what I want to get to right now is that, you know, what you said about the division within our own sort of factions, if you want to call them that. We've got Stand United. We've got Action for Canada. We've got these different groups here in British Columbia that everybody's kind of doing something. But I mean, you gotta put aside your own personal issues in order to be successful. You got to look at it like this. Okay, this is a war we're in, and if we're gonna win the war, you have to be able to trust the people who are in the trenches with you to
Well,
have your back.
all right, let's talk about that. That's a good point. It's a war. It's a war for the heart, soul, and spirit of a nation through its people. We have noticed that the WEF, whose partners probably to some degree the Chinese Communist Party at this point, although I'm sure they're going to be fighting with each other down the road. The idea is go after a person's religious beliefs, go after their worship of God, because they know full well that the toughest fight on anybody's hands, and we learned this in our country through the wars we fought, you can't win a religious war. There's no way you're going to defeat people who have a strong faith in God and will die for their country and for that God. So they know that they're fighting that type of war, and that's what they cannot overcome. And so when Schwab brags about people who have joined his forces, that's like the devil bragging about his evil spirits, if you will, coming into his fold. So my point is this, and your point is well taken. We have to come together. We have to understand that this is a war, but it's a war of information. It's a war for the heart, souls, and spirits of people. And I'm going to ask both of you to weigh in on this. All right, Marcella, let's start with you. I've suggested to people here in America, and I'm sure you get the same thing, the hundreds of emails, hundreds of information that's so ridiculous. I mean, that's so dumb. All right. But they'll take it, they'll absorb it, they'll send it out, they'll become the instrument of the opposition by sending all this stuff out, and it's scaring the living daylights out of people. What I've said is delete, 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 block, delete, delete, and only get information from credible sources. Obviously, you're credible, we're credible, Alan Nicholson's group is credible, but there are very few credible sources, but people got to dig and educate themselves. Marcella?
Oh, 100%. Do your research. And I've said that many, many times. I do live feeds on my Facebook, and, I do a lot of research for what we do. And this fear is the controller, and it's really is huge. It's a motivating factor for people. And I want to touch on the spiritual battle. I am a churched girl. And one of the things that really I saw from the very beginning and the get-go was when they started attacking the churches and not allowing you to sit together with your families. You're 6 feet apart. My church fell into all of the guidelines that the government instituted here. We went home to Zoom meetings. We weren't following the biblical principles. Fear ran rampant. It played a spiritual battle in that regard. And now you've got the church is all separated and divided, and fear is controlling people. We didn't even get together. We didn't even come together in somebody's house in secret. And that's a destroyer. That's a major form of discouragement for the people in the church. And so I think that attacking the churches was a very good ploy on their behalf. But like you said, it's the strong people that know their God. They're going to do exploits. We're going to be victorious. We're the people that aren't going to sit down. We're not going to shut up. God gave us a voice to speak and to stand up. And that's exactly what I've been doing ever since this started in 2020. I'm still here. I'm not going to sit down.
Well, to your point about the churches, I've been very vocal about that here in America. Pastors have let us down.
Yep.
It's easy to preach this stuff from behind a pulpit, but when you're called to arms, if you will, and we're talking about spiritual arms, we're talking about arms for freedom and liberty. Again, another group of cowards. I don't like to use names like that on the air, but I am going to begin to use that because I have no other definition for people who need to stand up as leaders and defend the flock, for goodness sakes.
I agree.
I was appalled, as many were across this country, when we got the video out of your police forces up there, literally, physically going into a church, attempting to remove a pastor during a service. I thought I was watching a movie coming out of Beijing, China. And yet, I got to tell you, Marcella and James, I waited and waited and waited for pastors across your country to rise up. I mean, really raise hell. And more here in the United States. I've waited for them to rise up and say, look it. So again, to the American audience and the pastors watching, you're next. You are next. Believe me, if you don't rise up, and we're not talking about rise up in a violent way, but you rise up in calling out these politicians as some, I got to tell you, I give credit to some of these Catholic leaders in this country. When the abortion issue came up and there were Democrats who voted, in fact, recently voted, by the way, well, it was the Congress. In the Congress, 140 Democrat congressmen voted that it would be doctors who would attempt to save the lives of babies who survive an abortion would be penalized, that they weren't to do that. Well, the Catholic Church finally rose up and said, that's it. They called some of these politicians out and they publicly denounced them. And that's what we need to do. But you're right, Marcella. So any pastors watching? Well, you know what? If you men and women aren't going out and supporting people, how about this? We'll make it easy. How about pray for them? How about hold prayer meetings for them? All right. I mean, we do that. We do that here at Campaign for America. So how about you hold prayer meetings and support them through that? It doesn't take much of a man or woman with courage and strength to do that. But that's something. James, you want to weigh in on that?
Well, personally, I would like everybody to realize one thing and just figure it out. You've been lied to. You've been manipulated into believing that there was ever any hope at all in eradicating COVID. It was never going to happen. If it traveled from China all the way across the planet, it's going to mutate. That's what viruses do. And we're following the science, are we not? But we don't listen to any immunologists. We don't listen to the doctors who are telling you that certain drugs were great for preventatives and even for, stopping the virus after you've caught it. But those were canceled. And that's what they did. They canceled anybody who spoke outside their narrative. So that's fear. So fear is the real virus, and the lies and the manipulation are the power. And they did that because they have the ability to feed everybody through the big machine of mainstream media. So how many people actually were scared? Understandably, in the beginning, it's pretty terrifying to hear something over and over and over and over again. Stay home, stay safe, wash your hands, stay in your bubble, all this BS. Because, what were we seeing on the news? We were seeing people banging on their pots and pans and celebrating their doctors, calling them the frontliners. People like Marcella and myself, I started marching in Vancouver with End the Lockdowns in March of 2020 with thousands of people. And we were hugging, shaking hands, living our lives, going to work. We didn't stop. So we were the real frontliners. We didn't have any PPE. We were out there showing the rest of the world that there was nothing to be afraid of. And we had people wishing death upon us, yelling at us through their masks, saying, we're out there trying to kill grandmas and grandpas. And that's the lie. They turned people against each other. It's divide and conquer. And once
they demonize the people who chose not to get a vaccination. Look, I've said to people, look, I'm not anti-vax, all right? I'm pro-individual rights. If you want to get the vax, fine. If you don't want to get the vax, fine. But don't demonize people who choose not to get the vaccination. But we got something going on in Connecticut. Listen to this. To your point, this politician, he's probably going to be run out of the state real soon because he just made a mistake. But here in Connecticut, just broke the news yesterday, there's a bill proposed in the Connecticut state legislature that would, if passed, give children 12 years and older the right to get vaccines without parental consent. So here we go again. You know what? Why I chuckle over this stuff? These clowns in Connecticut, all right, in that legislature, they got to know that it's going to cause a national uproar. They got to know that there's going to be court case after court case. It'll get to the Supreme Court, and they got to know the Supreme Court's going to rule against them. But to your point, James, what does it do? It instills fear in people, right? Now, people are wondering, gee, if I don't get, if my 12-year-old wants to get a vaccine, what's next? What if my child wants to get an abortion? What if my child wants to do something without my consent? And that is all about fear. I'm glad you brought that up. Franklin Roosevelt, our president during World War II in the 40s, said there's nothing to fear but fear itself. But what you're doing, And what others are doing is we're showing them we don't fear you. The only person I fear is God Almighty, Jesus Christ. Anybody else, you know what? The door.
Well, Stephen, I do want to say something here. Okay, to your point, that's all really relevant, and to my point as well. But what it boils down to is Hermann Goering, during the Nuremberg trials, before he was hung to death for his crimes against humanity, was asked, how did you get the German people to go along with you? And he said, well, it was easy. It's just human nature. It was fear. And that's what it boils down to. Get in front of your fear. Don't ever give up your fundamental rights or your country or your liberty or the right to go visit your grandparents who fought for you to have a good life when they're in a care facility or any of that kind of stuff. We've got more to fight for than we've ever had to fight for in our lives, because once we lose our freedom, it's going to be really hard to get it back. So it's why we stand up. We have another initiative. When we did the College of Physicians and Surgeons, we had lawyers, doctors, immunologists create something for us called informed consent documentation, which is kind of like a notice of liability with teeth, because it's also a cease and desist order, and it is an order of malfeasance. So when we put this documentation together, it's QR coded to all of the reporting sites on adverse reactions and all the real information that they're not telling people. So they can't call it misinformation, because that information came off the trusted government websites. Studies on ivermectin, studies on hydroxychloroquine, all this other information. So when we've been handing out these notices of liability through registered mail, we've done a campaign, over 600 registered mails on these things. All the bishops, all the Catholic bishops in Canada have received this informed consent. We've got one response back. That's it. There's 12 million registered Catholics in Canada. Yeah. So if they did speak about the truth, and they're actually committed to, this is worded in such a way that everybody above you in your chain of command and below you in your chain of command, once you receive this, is to be informed of it. So our next step is to be going for accountability, but we're going to need the support of people. I can't afford to take them to court. Okay, I need your help, people, and we need to pick them off one at a time. So we need to figure out our strategy, who we're going to go for first, and we're going to take that parachute away from them.
You're right, one at a time. And also, I want to make it a point too. Look, I know there are people who are put in very difficult positions. You've got a family, you got to support them, you got a house, you got to pay your bills. If you're confronted with, well, you get the vaccine or you're fired. If you get the vaccine, you're not evil, you're not bad. Believe me, these are times when we, have to show compassion, and we have to understand that the people are moved by great fear. So, because I've had people who I know, I have friends who were facing very tough predicaments. They're going to lose their homes, their jobs, their families, their kids. And they had to get the vaccine. You know what? I still welcome them as a friend because
that was coercion. That was coercion.
Yeah,
that's against the law. It goes against our international law as well as our.
Yep. But my point is this, James. When a person is losing their homes and losing everything, and their kids are going to be put into poverty, I understand. I fully understand. And so I would never demonize them like the other side's demonizing us.
Right.
And I find out that some of them who actually took the vaccine are probably the greatest proponents now of civil rights, because they were put in that position. And there's nothing that can be done to them because they got the vaccine. But I wanted to bring that point up because I've received a heck of a lot of heart-wrenching letters of people who were coerced, as you say, into that. We get it. You're not evil. You're not bad. No, the evil ones are the one that coerced you and perpetrated this. But remember, those who have been vaccinated, you're coerced into it. You may coerced into it. You may be asked to testify, and you may be asked to, speak out against it. And I think many of them will. But I wanted to make that point because, it's just a sad situation when corporations and political leaders do that. But even these political leaders who are opposed to what you're doing, opposed to what we're doing, it's all going to catch up to them. This is what I just can't put my arms around the fact that even the cops out there, I'm 38 years in law enforcement. Went up the ranks, became a police lieutenant. I know cops have to obey their orders, and then you question your orders later. Okay, and in the military, the same way. But my point is this: what I don't understand with the police is the excessive force. There's no reason to use excessive force on peaceful protesters, none at all. The
It's
legislators, yep,
like the Gestapo.
yep, the legislators, I understand. They will sell their mothers for votes. They will compromise on anything. They're corrupt. Not all of them. I know there are many good ones, but look, and I've been around both kinds, corrupt ones and good ones. The corrupt ones, they're in the ash bin of history right now. And that's where they all go. The good ones move on to do greater things. But there's a domino effect now. And I shared this with the people a few weeks ago as a result of your work, our work, and everybody else's work, who is showing we are not fearful. There's a domino effect of leaders around the world stepping down. Recently, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, gone, all right, gone. You're not going to see her no more. She resigned. We're seeing uprisings in other countries over a lot of things that are pointed towards the communist doctrines, if you will, that are being introduced in their countries. So you're not going to see a lot of this on the news, but certainly the new news, the new media, people are looking at. They're looking at live streaming, which the Communist Party in China has blocked, at least tried to a great degree. Your country's trying to block it. It's not going to happen. There's always a way around it. We had to really try to embarrass Trudeau. We were going to switch Radio Free Europe to Radio Free Canada. And that's very embarrassing for a guy that's supposed to be talking about freedom and liberty. But my point is, you're absolutely right. Fear is a powerful weapon, but there's no reason for us to fear. And I will say this, and I say this not lightly, but I say it because of the facts I have. Your parliament, our Congress, those elected officials fear you more than you fear them, believe me. And our party, our Republican Conservative Party here is now in control of Congress. We're going to take the Senate. We're going to take the presidency. And along that, what a lot of people don't understand is that we took school boards across the country. We took city governments, county governments. So there's a domino effect. But a lot of the news people aren't hearing. That's why some of your broadcasts up there, I think you have Rebel News up there, and you got True North. You got Shadow Davis. Those are 3 or 4 I know. You're getting, those are pretty heroic fellows there that are doing some great work. So support them and pray for them. What you're doing, I'll tell you, I find it absolutely fascinating, the work you're doing and how far you've gotten. And now you've revealed to us how you got there. You turned your fear into faith, for goodness sakes, right? and you remind me of Noah in the ark with his family. You got all this water rising up, and give a darn. Just get a bigger oar. We're gonna row.
Well, realistically, we're changing the game. Just like you're talking about getting, involved with the institutions that have been corrupted. That is where we can make real change happen. So when you're talking about school boards, we need better people working in the school boards. So, the curricular sticks to teaching our children about education and not trying to indoctrinate them to, go along with the government WEF program. That being said, our politicians, like you say, they fear us because at the end of the day, if we could get organized enough, like what we're doing now, we can start taking these. We're lucky in British Columbia and Canada. We are the only province in Canada that has the recall. Okay, and we're gonna use it, and we're gonna set the blueprint here for the rest of Canada how to take care of this business now. And yes, as far as Justin Trudeau goes, I've seen Justin Trudeau. He bowed to me when I said some really nasty things to him, so we've made eye contact. Okay, but at the end of the day, I have no problem embarrassing Justin Trudeau. He needs a real reality check. This is Canada, not China, and it's never gonna be China.
Well, he's going to have a rude awakening when our congressional committees are formed under the Republican Party. We're going to send a load of information to them. We have very close ties with some of the congressional leaders now. And we're going to send a load of information to them. Many of them are unaware of what's going on up there. Now, as I've shared with you earlier, we can't get directly involved in influencing your government policies. That's something we can't do. But we can educate our government leaders. Some of them are watching tonight, okay? We can educate them. They've watched Mr. Peckford when he was on the air. And we've had a tremendous number of Canadian people on the air, and we got these videos, and they're watching. And now some of them are scratching their heads saying, what's going on up there? But what we can do, and I just posted your email, what we can do is suggest to anyone who's watching, just send a memo, a note to that email address, all right, for more information on how to get in touch with them and what they're doing and how they're doing it. And bingo, I'm sure you'll reply.
Yes, we will.
You know, we really appreciate you having us on. This is the first time Marcella and I have actually been on any broadcast from America. I think what we're doing is tremendous work. We're heading in the right direction. And, you know, for us, it's not about driving around in circles. And like you said, you know, when we were in Ottawa, I personally wasn't there. I was still back in British Columbia. However, when the protest was happening back last February, it's terrible what happened. I mean, you saw police on horse trampling old women, decrepit old women, standing there smiling, saying freedom. This is terrible. The beatings that went on, that's Gestapo. I know Archer Pulowski, that pastor you were talking about. Okay, so I know him personally. I've met him. We've talked many times. It's unbelievable what's happened in Canada because of a narrative. Like, it's been a political pandemic since day one, and it's always been about control. It's never been about staying home and staying safe. It's about making good people go broke, staying home.
Well, just to give you a word of encouragement. We really didn't, and I'll be one of them to add to this group. We really didn't pay attention to Canada. It's just a great country, and that's all we do is a bunch of happy people up there, and you know, just doing great things until this COVID issue came out, and some of your residents got in touch with our broadcast here, and I remember saying, "Well, let's see what's going on there," and have some of the people on our broadcast, and that's how this was given birth to. You know, we're the only live streaming broadcast media outlet, if you will, in the United States that has Canada as part of the program. The only one. And I'm proud to say that because our national security is in danger here. And we need to get the information out. But as a result, here's the word of encouragement for you of what you're doing and others. Tucker Carlson on Fox News has been really highlighting what's going on. I could tell you One America News, Newsmax, those national news media outlets have been broadcasting from time to time some of the tragedies that are going on in your country. And I'm going to try. I will try to make contact with a few people that maybe could be in touch with you, and hopefully you could get on a national broadcast here. But be that as it may, we're going to continue to do what we're doing. We're going to have you on again. Okay, awesome. Definitely going to have you on again. And you're welcome. Look, you're doing God's work as far as I'm concerned, you know, and you know what I'm excited about to the point we were talking about how there's bad information getting out, right? To instill fear. All we saw until we got on the air and Tucker and others, all we saw was news footage of the government behaving themselves, okay? That the protesters, the rioters, and this and this. Then your countrymen and women started live streaming what was going on. The violence wasn't committed by the people, it was committed by the government.
That's right.
And Trudeau and those guys and gals up there in Parliament Hill understand that, yeah, we got a lot of problems in America, but we're not stupid, okay? We know what freedom and liberty looks like. And believe me, we could distinguish between violent protest and we could distinguish that between very peaceful protest. So the point is, you know, the government there is sending information out like the CCP and believing that, oh, everybody's just going to suck this in and that's going to be the end of it. Well, they've already had a rude awakening, and their awakening is going to really wake them up moving forward, especially the work you're doing. Any final words before we part our ways here?
I want to say something, then I'm going to let Marcella. This is a message for my fellow Canadians right now. Okay, this is so important. You know, the government loves us, and people know us, like from America and from other countries, that, you know, we're a really nice nation. Okay, that's not good right now, because a government can bully a nice nation. We need to be a good nation. We need good Canadians to do the work now. And please, for the love of God, please do the work and be a good Canadian.
Marcella?
And I like one of our friends yesterday at our Recall David EV rally. When he was speaking, he said, pick up the rope and pull with us. We need people on board. Many hands make the work light, and we're two people. And we've had a lot of support, but we need everybody in British Columbia to stand up and pull with us. This needs to happen.
Well, this video tonight's going to be shared worldwide. We know that by the response we're getting. And I just want to say we're going to do the best we could to help you within the framework of our laws. But there's one thing all of us can do is to keep you all in prayer. I believe in the power of prayer. I believe in the power of prayer. They're trying to take that away. Well, that's something that they can never take away.
That's
but I'm proud of you, and thank you so much. We're going to have you on again, all right? I mean, this was a real great conversation. Thank you. One more question. James, what kind of dog you have?
I've got a border collie. She's going to be 11 March 3rd, and I've had her since she was like 8 weeks old. She's my baby.
There you go. There you go. God bless you. Thanks a lot, folks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Stand by, folks. I'll be with you in a few minutes. Break for a quick commercial. Well, what a program! What a couple of heroes we had from Canada on tonight, and I got to tell you, folks, I'm just very, very grateful that people like you are standing up for freedom and liberty. So keep us here at Campaign America in your prayers that the good Lord meets our needs and that we continue to broadcast. A lot of good stuff going on. A lot of times you don't see it, but a lot of good stuff going on. And soon we're going to see the WEF in the Ash Minute history. We don't see it, our children will, because we're going to make sure that happens. And Canada is going to become the free nation it once was, as we will become the free nation we once were. See that right behind me, folks? You see that? There you go. Together forever, right? That's great stuff. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time here in the United States of America. Hey, folks, there's our website. We have a contact page. If you want to send us a note, a memo, whatever, just go to our website and send us a little memo or note. Thank you so much. God bless you all. And remember, always, always remember that there's a God above who loves you, going to take care of you. You might be going through a storm right now. We all go through storms. But he, Jesus, promised, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. Have a great week. Thank you.